Hey everyone, so this is my light meter. It is a Seikonic L358. I've had it now for about a year and a half and I love it. When I first started photography as a hobby, I went without a meter for a year and a half, don't really remember. And it was fine, I was able to get by and I did learn a lot. I did learn how to control flash and ambient light through ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. But having a light meter really helps. I use it whenever I want to get as precise of an exposure reading as possible. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about what this meter can do. I'm not going to be able to go over all of its functions because it has a lot, and some of the advantages of using a light meter. So this meter came with this little leather pouch. I don't even know it's leather, it's plastic, I think plastic leather. It's nice. I use it when I throw it in my bag, put it in here and then throw this in my bag. It also comes with this little lanyard thing where you can throw over your neck if you want to carry it around with you. It has a rotatable head, so you can rotate all the way around here and back. And it has a retractable lumisphere. So you turn this knob here, it goes up and it goes down. What a light meter does that's different from the meter that's inside your camera is a light meter reads incident light, meaning it's measuring the light that is falling onto the lumisphere rather than what your camera is doing. It's called reflective metering. It is measuring the light that is reflecting off the surface of whatever your lens is capturing and back into the camera, which can give you false readings. Incident reading is much more accurate. So this meter, let's turn this thing on. So you press the power button here. It turns on. You have a average button and a exposure change button, or exposure delta. You have two ISO settings. ISO 1, I have it set for ISO 100, and ISO 2, I have it set for 400. You can change those to whatever you want. It's got the mode button and the memory button. You can hold 9 readings in memory. It has your jog wheel here. It has a place where you can put a PC sync cord to your flash. And it has the trigger right here to take a reading. Now this Seikonic meter comes with 3 basic modes and an optional 4th mode. The 4th mode being the ability to trigger Pocket Wizards wirelessly if you buy the Pocket Wizard module. I don't use the Pocket Wizard module because I don't use Pocket Wizards. I use the Paul C. Buff CyberSyncs, and they work great. I haven't had any complaints or any problems with them. They fire every single time. They're manual triggers. And in another video, I'll show you how I link this up to my Pocket Wizard so I can still use my meter to fire my strobes remotely. So let's just go over some of the basic ones. So here, the first icon, the first mode is an ambient reading mode. It's an icon of a sun, and this meter allows you to do aperture priority readings and also shutter priority readings. So you got the T there for time and then F there for f-stop. So right now, let's say you hold the mode dial. Let's say you wanted to do an aperture priority reading. You hold the mode dial, you spin it till the F has a square around it, and then you pick your aperture. Let's say you don't have to pick your aperture. It doesn't have to be exactly in this order. But let's say you wanted to shoot at 1.8. So you point the lumisphere to the lens. This is an ambient light leading. You set your ISO. I have my ISO at 100. I want to shoot at 1.8. Press the reading, and it tells you at 1.8 and ISO 100, your shutter speed needs to be 1/5 of a second for a proper exposure. But let's say you change your mind, you want to shoot at 2.8. Well, if the light hasn't changed, you don't have to actually take another reading. You can just take your jog dial and click it up until it hits 2.8, and then it'll tell you what your new shutter speed will be. Let's say you wanted to shoot at f8. You just spin it up to f8. It tells you that I will need my shutter speed will need to be 4 seconds at f8 at ISO 100 to get the proper exposure. And you can set actually your jog dial settings. I have it set to each click is 1/3 of a stop, which matches my camera. You can set it up to 1/10 of a stop and even 1/2 of a stop on the back. So let me just show you that. So here, let me turn this off. So back here, it does take these weird batteries, which I've had this for 1.5 years. It's still the original battery, so I haven't had any problems with it, and it actually still says full power on the front. You just flip these little triggers. I got the first 2 down, the last 2 up, and that sets it to 1/3 of a stop. Here's a module for the Pocket Wizard. If you have Pocket Wizard triggers, you can buy the Pocket Wizard module here, and it'll fire your strobes remotely as well. All right. Let's turn it back on. So that's that. The next reading, or the next mode, is the this one's kind of a long name. What's it called? It's called the Auto Reset Cordless Flash mode. It's the picture of the lightning bolt right in the middle. So what this does is, if you don't have anyone to help you, let's say you couldn't, you didn't have a PC cord to remotely fire your strobes, you can set this up to this mode where what you do is you set your ISO. I have my ISO set at 100. You set your shutter speed. I have it set at 2/50th, which is the maximum sync speed of my camera. And then you take a strobe and turn that guy on. And this strobe is set to, let's put it at a low power. This is at 1/128th power. So what happens is when you click this trigger, it'll start to blink, and it'll wait 90 seconds for a flash. So I take my strobe, click the test pop, and there it goes. It's saying that for proper exposure, I need to have my f-stop at f5. Let's see if I click it really close, do another test. Oh, it stopped blinking. There it goes. Because I changed it. F13. If I wanted to do farther away, F3.2. Change it from here. F5. So you can just keep popping your strobe, and it'll wait for 90 seconds for a strobe. See, and it'll give you the reading and the proper exposure for that. And the next mode is similar to this mode. It's the I think it's called the let me look at the manual here. It's the cord multiple flash mode. Basically, what you do is you take this off and you attach a PC sync cord to here, and the other wire to your flash or strobe, and clicking this will remotely fire your strobes. I don't use that. Well, I do use it, but I use it in a different way, which I'll show you guys how to do that in another video, because I don't have the Pocket Wizard module. But I can fire my strobes remotely with this by basically linking my CyberSync transmitter to here using a PC sync cord. Anyway, that's basically the meter. Oh, it does other things also. It can also do averages. So let's say we're back at the ambient light reading. So if I hold this trigger, if I click the trigger once, it gives me the reading. Here I'm at aperture mode. Click it once at f8, 4 seconds. ISO 100 gives me a proper exposure. So let's say I wanted to go down to 5.6, 2 second shutter speed at 100 ISO will give me a proper exposure. But if I hold the trigger down and I start spinning the dial, I don't know if you can see that, but the shutter speed is changing as, see, if I cover the lumisphere, it's saying it's a 25 second exposure or shutter speed to get the proper exposure. Open it up, 2 seconds. So So it's constantly reading as long as you hold this down. You can also take averages. So if I take a reading here, I press the memory button, then it says I have one reading in memory. So let's say I want to take a reading this way from the light falling on the back. Click it again, it takes another reading, and then I click the memory button again, and now it says I have two readings in memory. So then if I want to know the average of those two readings, I click this button, the average button, and that A appears, and this means this is the average reading for those two measurements we just took. So at aperture 5.6 at ISO 100, it's 3.2 seconds for a proper exposure, which is the average of those two. You can do that. You can hold up to 9 readings in here, and it'll average as many. It'll average all 9 ambient light readings into your flash meter and give you the average. It can also do the delta also. I don't use that a whole lot because I know my aperture numbers pretty well, meaning you can take a flash reading here and then take a flash reading here, and then it'll tell you the difference rather than telling you the f-stop. It'll just tell you this is 1 stop more than this light, and so on. Instead of, if you're not good, if you don't know that 5.6, the next f-stop is f8, if you didn't know that, it'll just tell you this reading and this reading is exactly 1 stop difference, and so on. So that's kind of nice to have. I want to show you some examples of how a light meter won't be fooled where a reflective meter will be fooled. So here's an example of where the meter in your camera using reflective metering is being fooled. This is a shot of white foam core. I had my camera on a tripod. I just manually focused, put in aperture priority, and it took this picture. You know, the camera is thinking, because it sees this whole white scene, it's thinking, whoa, it must be blown out. So it's trying to meter, it's trying to expose for middle gray, actually 18% gray. Here's the exact same shot, the same foam core, didn't change anything except for I used my meter to tell me what settings to have my camera to take the shot. As you can see, the white foam core looks totally white, which is how it should. It's not fooled because it's using incident metering where the light is, it's measuring the light that is falling onto your subject rather than reflecting off it. Here's another shot using black foam core, using aperture priority, manually focusing, and this is what the camera is giving me. It's exposing for middle gray. Now here's that exact same black foam core when I'm using my light meter to tell me what settings I should set my camera to. And as you can see, the black foam core looks black. I mean, it's not completely pitch black, but my black foam core isn't really pitch black. It looks just like it looks in this shot. See, here's a shot where I put half black foam core and half white foam core. I used aperture priority, and the camera got it right because it's basically 50% black and 50% white, which is middle gray. So the camera is able to get this situation right. It's when you have extreme dark backgrounds or extreme white backgrounds, your reflective meter can be fooled and won't give you a precise reading. Here are a couple more examples of the same situation where the meter in your camera using reflective metering can be fooled as opposed to metering with a light meter. In all these examples, I'm just using ambient light. But when you're using strobe, the meter really comes in handy. It helps you do ratios. You know, if you wanted to do like a 2-to-1 ratio, you know, you want to have this side of someone's face. Let's say you're doing a portrait, 3 stops darker than the key light, or you wanted to add a hair light, or you wanted to test the background of your portrait. Let's say you're doing a high key image and you got a white background. You can meter several times all the way across from edge to edge of your background, so you can see if your exposure is the same from one end to the other. And you can also meter your subject so you know how the light readings are throughout your whole image and get a precise reading. It really comes in handy. I hope you enjoyed my review, and if you had any questions, please leave a comment.